The email from my father arrived on a Wednesday morning while I was reviewing acquisition proposals for my investment firm's latest expansion into the Southeast hospitality market. Subject: Mom's 30th anniversary celebration. Dear Olivia, your mother and I are celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary on Saturday, October 21st at the Pinecrest Country Club. This is going to be an elegant affair with approximately 100 guests from our social and professional circles. After considerable thought, we've decided it would be best if you didn't attend. Your current lifestyle and circumstances don't align with the image we're presenting, and we want to avoid any uncomfortable questions from our guests about your situation. We hope you understand this isn't personal. It's simply a matter of maintaining appearances at an important event. We'll plan a smaller family dinner another time where your presence would be more appropriate. Best regards, Dad. I read it 3 times, each reading making the words sting a little less and my resolve grow a little stronger. Your current lifestyle and circumstances. Maintaining appearances. More appropriate. My current lifestyle involved living in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a middle-class neighborhood, driving a 7-year-old Honda Accord and shopping at Target. What my parents didn't know, what they'd never bothered to ask about, was that this lifestyle was a choice, not a necessity. I typed a brief response. Understood. I hope you have a beautiful celebration. Congratulations on 30 years. Then I opened a different email thread, this one with my acquisitions team. Status update on the Pinecrest Country Club opportunity? I wrote. My director of acquisitions, Marcus Webb, responded within minutes. Owner is motivated. His health is declining, kids don't want to run it. He's asking $8.7 million, but I think we can close at $7.9 million. Property needs updates, but the location is prime. 150 acres, championship golf course, event facilities that book 200+ weddings annually. Revenue streams are solid. I'd recommend moving forward. I looked at my calendar. Wednesday, October 18th. My parents' anniversary was Saturday, October 21st. 3 days. Make an offer at $8.2 million, all cash, close in 48 hours, I typed. I'll cover any inspection contingencies after closing. This needs to happen fast. That's aggressive, Marcus wrote back. But I can make it work. Any particular reason for the rush? Personal investment interest. I want this one. You got it, boss. I'll have contracts drawn up within the hour. I sat back in my leather office chair, the one piece of furniture in my apartment that cost more than everything else combined, and looked out at the Atlanta skyline. Reynolds Capital Group occupied the entire 28th floor of one of the city's most prestigious office towers, but my family thought I was barely scraping by. Let me be clear about something. I'd built Reynolds Capital Group from nothing over the past 9 years. Started with $25,000 I'd saved from working 3 jobs during college, bought a foreclosed duplex, renovated it myself, rented it out, saved every dollar, bought another property, then another. By year 3 I had a small portfolio. By year 5 I'd started acquiring commercial properties. By year 7 I'd expanded into hospitality, restaurants, hotels, event venues. My company now controlled $340 million in real estate assets across 6 states. We employed 427 people. Last year's revenue was $67 million, with a profit margin that made my accountants very happy. And my parents thought I was poor. To be fair, I'd let them think it. 9 years ago, when I'd started buying properties, my father had scoffed at the idea. Real estate? Olivia, you have a degree in economics from Emory. You should be working at a bank or consulting firm, not playing landlord with some rundown apartment building. When my first property sale netted me $80,000 in profit, he'd said, "That's nice, honey, but it's not a real career. You need stability, benefits, a 401k. When I'd started acquiring commercial properties, my mother had sighed and said, "When are you going to settle down with a real job? Your sister has a corner office at a law firm. Your brother is a VP at his company. And you're collecting buildings like they're Pokemon cards." So I'd stopped telling them about my successes. I'd stopped inviting them to see my properties or meet my team. I'd showed up to family events in my casual clothes, driving my Honda, living in my modest apartment, which I maintained specifically because it was near my first property and I liked staying connected to where I'd started. They'd seen what they wanted to see, a daughter who'd failed to live up to her potential. Now they were uninviting me from their anniversary because I'd embarrassed them. My phone rang. Marcus. Owner accepted $8.2 million. He's thrilled with the all-cash offer and the speed. We can close Friday afternoon if we push hard. Make it happen. Whatever it takes. Olivia, I have to ask, why the rush on this one? We've got 3 other country club opportunities in our pipeline with better numbers. This one's personal. Say no more. I'll have the team working around the clock. You'll own Pinecrest Country Club by Friday at 5 p.m. Friday afternoon, I sat in a conference room at my attorney's office, signing page after page of closing documents. The Pinecrest Country Club seller Harrison Whitmore III sat across from me looking relieved and a bit sad. I've owned Pinecrest for 37 years, he said as we signed. Built it from a small 9-hole course into what it is today. I'm glad it's going to someone who'll take care of it. I will, I promised. I've reviewed your staff files. You've built a good team. I'm keeping everyone on, including your general manager. Paul? He'll be relieved. He's been worried about his future. Paul's excellent at his job. I'd be foolish to replace him. After the closing, I drove straight to Pinecrest. My Pinecrest now. The property was stunning. Rolling hills, mature oak trees, a pristine golf course, and a magnificent clubhouse with soaring windows overlooking the 18th hole. The event hall where my parents' anniversary would be held tomorrow could accommodate 300 guests with its crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and a terrace that offered sunset views over the golf course. Paul Montgomery, the general manager, was waiting in his office. Ms. Reynolds, welcome. Mr. Whitmore called to let me know the sale closed. I wanted to assure you that tomorrow's anniversary event for the Reynolds family. He stopped. Wait, Reynolds? Are you related to Richard and Margaret Reynolds? They're my parents. His eyes widened. Oh my. They don't know you bought the club. They don't know I could buy the club. They uninvited me from their anniversary because they think I'm poor and would embarrass them. Paul's expression shifted from surprise to something like satisfaction. I see. And tomorrow when they arrive, I'd like you to greet them personally. Welcome them warmly. Mention that the new owner, Ms. Reynolds, has requested you ensure their event is perfect. See how long it takes them to make the connection. A slow smile spread across Paul's face. It would be my absolute pleasure. Should I prepare for any specific requests from you regarding the event? Everything proceeds as planned. Food, service, setup, all exactly as they ordered. I'm not here to sabotage their celebration. I'm just here to exist in a space they didn't think I belonged. Understood. Will you be attending the event? I will now. After they arrive and realize what's happened, I'll make an appearance. But Paul, I want to be clear. This isn't about revenge. It's about my parents finally seeing who I actually am instead of who they assumed I was. Of course. For what it's worth, Ms. Reynolds, I've been managing this club for 15 years. I've met a lot of wealthy people. Most inherited their money or married into it. Someone who built what you've built by 30 years old? That's rare. Your parents should be proud. They would be if they knew. The problem is they never asked. Saturday evening arrived with perfect October weather. Clear skies, temperature in the low 70s, the kind of evening that made outdoor events magical. I'd spent the day at the club, meeting with department heads, reviewing operations and working with Paul to ensure my parents' event would be flawless. At 6:45 p.m., 15 minutes before guests were scheduled to arrive, I positioned myself in Paul's office, which had windows overlooking the main entrance. I dressed carefully, not in my usual casual wear, but in a tailored navy suit from an Italian designer, paired with pearls and heels. My hair was professionally styled. I looked every inch the successful businesswoman I was. My parents' car pulled up first, Dad's Mercedes S-Class, freshly washed and gleaming. A valet rushed to open the doors. My mother emerged in a champagne-colored gown that probably cost $5,000. My father wore a custom tuxedo. They looked elegant, successful, and completely unprepared for what was about to happen. Paul was already walking toward the entrance, his posture perfect, his smile professional and warm. Through the window I watched him greet them. Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, welcome to Pinecrest Country Club. We're honored to host your 30th anniversary celebration. Thank you, Dad said, shaking his hand. We're looking forward to a wonderful evening. Everything is prepared exactly to your specifications, Paul continued. Our new owner, Ms. Reynolds, personally requested that I ensure your event is absolutely perfect. She's been very involved in the preparations. I watched my mother's smile falter slightly. New owner? I thought Harrison Whitmore owned Pinecrest. Mr. Whitmore sold the property this week. Ms. Reynolds closed on the purchase yesterday afternoon. She's been here all day making sure everything meets her standards, which are quite high, I might add. Dad's expression shifted from polite interest to confusion. Ms. Reynolds? That's an interesting coincidence. That's our last name as well. Sir. Actually, she mentioned you're her parents. She's very much looking forward to celebrating your anniversary here at her club. The color drained from my mother's face. Her club? What do you mean her club? Ms. Olivia Reynolds purchased Pinecrest Country Club. She owns it as of yesterday. She's inside now if you'd like to. That's impossible, Dad interrupted. Our daughter Olivia doesn't have the resources to buy a country club. There must be some mistake. No mistake, sir. Ms. Reynolds owns this property through her company, Reynolds Capital Group. She's quite an impressive young woman. Now if you'll follow me, I'll show you to the event hall. Your guests will be arriving shortly. My parents stood frozen at the entrance, processing this information. Other cars were pulling up now, guests arriving in formal wear, stepping out of luxury vehicles, chattering excitedly about the beautiful venue. I watched my mother lean close to Dad, whispering urgently. He pulled out his phone, probably to call me, but I'd silenced his number for the evening. My sister Catherine arrived with her husband and immediately noticed our parents' distressed expressions. It was time. I left Paul's office and walked through the clubhouse, my heels clicking on the marble floors. I could hear voices from the event hall. Guests arriving, servers offering champagne, a string quartet playing softly. I emerged from the administrative corridor just as Paul was leading my parents toward the event hall. They saw me at the same moment I saw them. Time seemed to stop. My mother's hand flew to her throat. Dad stood completely still, his face cycling through emotions. Shock, disbelief, confusion, and something that might have been embarrassment. Mom, Dad, I said calmly, walking toward them. Congratulations on 30 years of marriage. That's a remarkable achievement. Olivia. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. What's going on? Paul said you bought this club. I did. Closed on the purchase yesterday. $8.2 million all cash. It's a solid investment. Prime location, consistent revenue streams, well-maintained facilities. Plus, the timing worked out perfectly for your event. Dad found his voice. You bought an $8.2 million country club? Well, technically Reynolds Capital Group bought it, but yes. It's my company, so ultimately it's my purchase. Catherine had joined us now, looking confused. What company? Olivia, what's happening? I own a real estate investment and management company. We have holdings across 6 states. Commercial properties, hospitality venues, residential developments. Total portfolio value is approximately $340 million. The small group that had gathered, my parents, Catherine, her husband David, and a few early arriving guests, stood in stunned silence. That's impossible, Catherine said. You live in that tiny apartment. You drive an old Honda. You shop at Target. I've seen your apartment, Olivia. There's IKEA furniture. All true. I like my apartment. It's near my first investment property and keeps me grounded. The Honda runs fine. And Target has everything I need. Just because I have money doesn't mean I need to spend it on things that don't matter to me. Mom shook her head. This doesn't make sense. We would have known if you were running a multi-million-dollar company. Would you? When's the last time you asked me about my work? You never said you were doing anything significant. I stopped telling you years ago. Do you remember 9 years ago when I bought my first property? Dad told me I was wasting my time playing landlord. When I tried to explain my business model at Thanksgiving 6 years ago, you all started talking over me about Catherine's promotion. When I mentioned acquiring a commercial building 4 years ago, Mom said I should stop collecting real estate and get a real job. We didn't mean, Mom started. You made it clear my work wasn't worth discussing. So I stopped discussing it. I built my company quietly while you all assumed I was failing. More guests were arriving now, flowing around us toward the event hall. Some were starting to notice the tension, casting curious glances at our small group. This isn't the place for this conversation, Dad said, his voice tight. We have 100 guests arriving. You're right. This is your celebration. Please go enjoy it. Everything is prepared exactly as you ordered. The food, the music, the flowers. All of it. I'm not here to ruin your anniversary. But you're here to humiliate us, Catherine said bitterly. You bought the club just to throw it in our faces that you're rich and we didn't know. No. I bought the club because it's a good investment and because I was available to close quickly. The fact that it's also where you're celebrating your anniversary after explicitly uninviting me because my lifestyle doesn't fit the image. That's just irony. Paul appeared at my elbow. Ms. Reynolds, the catering manager, has a question about the dessert service timeline. Do you have a moment? Of course. I looked at my parents. Enjoy your evening. Truly. 30 years of marriage deserves to be celebrated properly. I walked away, leaving them standing in the foyer, still processing. For the next hour, I stayed in the administrative wing, working with staff on various operational details. I could hear the celebration through the walls. Music, laughter, the clink of glasses. My parents were hosting a beautiful party in a venue they hadn't known I owned until 90 minutes ago. My phone buzzed constantly. Text messages from Catherine, from my brother Michael, who'd apparently been informed of the situation, from family friends who were at the party and had heard whispers about what was happening. Catherine, you should have told us. This is cruel. Michael, is it true? Do you really own this place? My Aunt Susan, your mother is having a breakdown. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Can you please come talk to her? I replied only to Susan, I'll come to the party in a bit. I'm not avoiding them. Just giving them space to process. At 8:30 p.m. I changed from my business suit into a cocktail dress I'd brought, elegant but understated, appropriate for a formal anniversary celebration. I touched up my makeup, steeled myself, and walked toward the event hall. The party was in full swing. The string quartet had transitioned to a jazz ensemble. Guests danced on the terrace under strings of lights. The sunset painted the golf course in shades of gold and amber. It was objectively a beautiful event. I slipped into the hall and made my way to the bar, ordering a glass of wine. Several guests recognized me, or thought they did, with that confused "don't I know you from somewhere" expression. Olivia. I turned to find my brother Michael approaching with his wife, Amy. Hey Michael. Is it true? You own this place? As of yesterday, yes. He shook his head in disbelief. How? Why didn't you tell anyone? I tried years ago. Nobody was interested. So I stopped trying and focused on building my company instead of convincing my family it was real. Amy touched my arm gently. I think what Michael means is we're amazed. And maybe a little ashamed that we didn't know our own family member had accomplished so much. Thank you, Amy. Mom's been crying on and off for the past hour, Michael said. She feels terrible about the email. She should. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because this is their anniversary, and despite everything, I wanted them to have a perfect celebration. You have a funny way of showing it, buying their venue 2 days before their party. Would you have preferred I let them celebrate here without knowing? That would have been dishonest. At least now we're dealing with truth instead of assumptions. A voice behind me, Olivia. I turned to find my father, looking older and more uncertain than I'd ever seen him. Dad. Can we talk? Privately. I glanced at Michael, who nodded. We'll give you space. Dad led me to a quiet corner of the terrace, away from the other guests. I owe you an apology, he began. Multiple apologies, actually. Starting with that email. Your mother and I, we were wrong. About everything. Yes, you were. We didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't ask. Dad, I've been building this company for 9 years. 9 years of acquisitions, renovations, expansions. I've employed hundreds of people. I've transformed neighborhoods with my developments. I've created something substantial. And you thought I was poor. Because you live so modestly. We assumed. You assumed I was struggling because I wasn't displaying wealth the way you expected. But I was investing, building, growing a business. I lived modestly so I could pour every dollar back into the company. He nodded slowly. Catherine showed me your company's website. The properties you've acquired, the developments you've managed. Olivia, it's extraordinary. Why did you hide it from us? I didn't hide it. I stopped sharing it because every time I did, you dismissed it. There's a difference between hiding and giving up on being seen. That email I sent. Telling you not to come because of your lifestyle. I'm ashamed. You have every right to be angry. I'm not angry, Dad. I'm disappointed. You judged me without knowing me. You made assumptions about my worth based on my car and my apartment, without ever asking about my actual life. How do we fix this? I don't know if you can, but you could start by actually being interested in my work. Not because I own this club and it's now impossible to ignore, but because I'm your daughter and my life should have always mattered to you. It does matter. You matter. Then prove it. Get to know the company I built. Meet my team. Visit my properties. Be interested in my success not because it's impressive, but because it's mine. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I'd like that. I'd like that very much. Mom appeared beside us, her makeup smudged from crying. Olivia, I'm so sorry. The email, the things we said, we were horrible. Can you ever forgive us? I don't know yet, Mom. That email hurt. Being told I don't fit your image, that my presence would be embarrassing. That hurt more than you probably intended. We didn't mean it like that. We thought. You thought I was poor and unsuccessful. And rather than being proud of me anyway, rather than loving me regardless of my bank account, you uninvited me from your anniversary. What does that say about your values? She flinched. You're right. It says we valued appearances over our daughter. That's unforgivable. It's not unforgivable. But it does need to change. Catherine joined us, her expression contrite. Olivia, I've been a terrible sister. Michael and I have been talking. We've all been terrible to you. You've been dismissive. You've been condescending. You've assumed you were more successful than me because your success was more visible. Your office is on the 28th floor of the Atlantic Tower, Catherine said. I looked up your company's address. I work 3 blocks away. I've walked past your building 100 times and never knew my sister owned an entire floor. Because you never asked where I worked. I know. I'm sorry. Paul approached our group. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're about to cut the anniversary cake. Mrs. Reynolds, the photographer is ready for family photos if you'd like to gather everyone. Mom looked at me hesitantly. Would you be in the photos? I know we don't deserve it, but you're our daughter and it would mean everything to have you in them. I looked at my family, imperfect, flawed, but mine nonetheless. Hey, let's do the photos. We gathered on the terrace. Parents, siblings, spouses, even my nephew and niece who'd been running around the party all evening. The photographer arranged us while guests watched. Beautiful family, the photographer said. Everyone say, 30 years. 30 years, we chorused. The flash went off, capturing us all together. The family that didn't know me standing beside the daughter they'd underestimated. After the cake cutting and the speeches and the first dance, after guests had congratulated my parents and asked about the new owner situation, which Mom deflected diplomatically, I found myself alone on the terrace, looking out at the golf course in the darkness. Some party. I turned to find Catherine beside me, 2 glasses of champagne in her hands. She offered me one. It is a beautiful venue, I said, accepting the glass. You have good taste. I didn't choose it. Mom did. But I have to admit, knowing you own it makes it even better. She paused. That came out wrong. What I mean is, I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. Thank you. Can I ask you something? When you bought this place, was it really just about the investment? Or was part of you wanting to prove something to Mom and Dad? I considered the question. Honestly, both. It's a good investment. Paul runs an excellent operation, the location is prime, the financials are solid. But yes, part of me wanted Mom and Dad to see what I'd built. Not to be cruel, but to be seen. To exist as more than their disappointing daughter. You were never disappointing. We were just too self-absorbed to see your success because it looked different from ours. That's surprisingly insightful for someone who's had 4 glasses of champagne. She laughed. It's my 7th actually. But the insight is genuine. Michael, Amy, David and I have been talking. We want to do better. We want to actually know you, not the version of you we invented. I'd like that. So tell me about your company. Really tell me. Start from the beginning. We sat on the terrace steps and I told her the story. The first foreclosed duplex, the YouTube renovation tutorials, the nights sleeping in unfinished rooms because I couldn't afford rent and materials simultaneously. The first profit, the first expansion, the first commercial acquisition. The risks, the failures, the lessons learned. She listened without interrupting, asking questions that showed genuine interest. You know what's crazy? She said when I finished. I've been practicing law for 8 years. I make good money, I have a corner office, I'm on track for partner. And I've been so proud of myself. But you built an empire. You created jobs, transformed properties, provided housing. Your impact is massive and you did it all before turning 30. Your work matters too. We don't have to compete. I know. But I wish I'd known sooner. I wish I'd asked sooner. The party was winding down. Guests were collecting coats, calling cars, saying their goodbyes. My parents were by the entrance, thanking people for coming. We should go help with the farewells, Catherine said. You go ahead. I'm going to do a final walkthrough with Paul. She hugged me. A real hug, not the perfunctory embraces we'd exchanged at family gatherings. Thank you for not letting us ruin this night. You could have closed the sale after their anniversary. You could have embarrassed them in front of everyone. But you didn't. They're still my parents. And despite everything, 30 years of marriage deserves to be celebrated. After Catherine left, I found Paul in the kitchen overseeing the cleanup. How did we do? I asked. Flawlessly, if I may say so. The Reynolds family seemed very pleased with everything. Well, complicated emotions aside. The food was excellent. Your team executed perfectly. They'll appreciate hearing that from you. So Ms. Reynolds, what's next for Pinecrest? Renovations? Expansions? Both, eventually. But for now, we maintain what's working and start planning strategic improvements. I'm thinking about adding a spa facility, upgrading the golf course clubhouse, maybe expanding the event space. But nothing rushed. This place has been successful for decades. We don't need to change everything immediately. That's wise. Mr. Whitmore always said good management is knowing when to maintain versus when to innovate. He was right. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Are you still here? Can we talk before you leave? I found my parents in the now empty event hall. The catering staff was breaking down tables, but the room still looked beautiful. Romantic lighting, scattered flower petals, the lingering evidence of a celebration. Olivia, Mom said as I approached. We wanted to thank you. For tonight. For not sabotaging our anniversary even though we deserved it. I wouldn't sabotage your anniversary, Mom. I'm not cruel. No, you're not. You're kind and patient and successful, and we've been blind to all of it. Dad stepped forward. We'd like to take you to dinner. Just us. We want to hear about your company, your properties, your life. Will you give us that chance? What changed? 12 hours ago, you didn't want me at your anniversary because I'd embarrass you. 12 hours ago we were fools, he said simply. We judged you by your car and your apartment instead of asking about your life. We valued image over substance. We failed you as parents. You did, I agreed. But people can change. Families can heal. It won't happen overnight, though. We know, Mom said. But we'd like to start. If you'll let us. I looked at them. My imperfect parents who'd hurt me, dismissed me, underestimated me. But also the people who'd raised me, who'd given me opportunities, who'd taught me resilience even if they'd done so unintentionally. Okay, I said finally. Dinner. Next week. Just us. But Dad, when you ask me about my work, actually listen. Don't compare it to Michael's career or Catherine's trajectory. Just listen to what I've built on my own terms. I promise. And Mom, when I tell you about living modestly while running a multi-million-dollar company, don't try to convince me to buy a bigger house or fancier car. Respect that I've chosen a lifestyle that works for me. I will. I promise. Then we can start over. Not completely, we can't erase the past. But we can build something new going forward. They both hugged me, and this time it felt genuine. Not the performance of family but actual connection. I left Pinecrest Country Club at midnight, after doing a final walkthrough with Paul, checking in with the overnight security team, and making notes about small improvements I wanted to implement. As I drove home in my 7-year-old Honda Accord, through streets lit by street lamps and the occasional passing car, I thought about the past 24 hours. The email uninviting me, the rushed purchase, the shock on my parents' faces, the conversations that followed. Had buying the club been petty? Maybe a little. But it had also forced a conversation that was 7 years overdue. My family had finally seen me, really seen me, Not because I'd changed, but because my success had become too large to dismiss. My phone rang through the car's speakers. Catherine, you home yet? Almost. What's up? I just wanted to say I'm glad you bought that club. Not because it made Mom and Dad uncomfortable, though that was kinda satisfying to watch, but because it forced all of us to see what we'd been missing. You're incredible, Olivia. I'm sorry it took us so long to notice. Thanks, Catherine. That means a lot. Also, can you teach me about real estate investing? I've been putting money in index funds like an idiot when apparently I could be building an empire. I laughed. Empire building isn't for everyone. But I'll teach you about real estate if you're genuinely interested. I am. Sister's coffee date next week. I'd like that. After hanging up, I pulled into my apartment complex, the modest building in a middle-class neighborhood that housed the two-bedroom apartment I'd chosen to keep as my primary residence. The apartment where I'd planned my first acquisition, celebrated my first profit, worked late into countless nights building something that nobody believed in except me. I could afford a penthouse now. I could afford a mansion. But this apartment reminded me of where I started, of the woman I'd been when success was just a dream and determination was all I had. Tomorrow I'd go into my office on the 28th floor. I'd review acquisition proposals, meet with my team, plan the strategic improvements for Pinecrest Country Club. I'd continue building Reynolds Capital Group, expanding into new markets, creating opportunities. But tonight I'd sleep in my modest apartment in the life I'd chosen, secure in the knowledge that my family finally knew the truth. I wasn't poor. I'd never been poor. I'd just been invisible to people who were too busy looking at surfaces to see substance. Not anymore.